the purpose of the African Union, and by the way, we are celebrating today 60 years, it's our 60th anniversary. The purpose is African unity. And it's not just at the political level, but at all levels, all sectors. Transport represents the physical unity and integration of Africa. We want to see roads, railways, airlines, maritime transport growing and linking Africa to each other. Actually, we do have, or sadly, we have this colonial legacy that left all the majority of the roads or the ports linking mine to port. But nothing to link the country with itself or to link the country to its neighboring country. So we want, our purpose is to remedy that, uniting physically by connecting physically the continent and all the countries with each other. To that end, we have also launched the single African air transport market, for instance, to have our airlines all, working freely and with the same freedoms across the continent, bringing the prices down, availing more connections and between the countries, lifting more goods and people. And I'm happy to say that now we have 35 African countries that have adhered to the single market. That's accounting for 800 million Africans who are now connected with our own airlines, with our African airlines. Same thing for roads. We have a master plan. We have developed specific projects, corridors, regional and transcontinental, so as to link the continent by itself. And we finished a first 10-year plan. We are into a second one again. These are the mega projects, between all African regions, and also going transcontinentally, east to west, north to south. I can go on and on in all sectors, but this is the place that transport occupies, especially that transport as well supports all the other programs that we're having, especially a major initiative, which is the African Free Trade Area. And without transport, without connectivity, physical or digital, simply there is no African trade. The population is growing very fast. We are also the fastest urbanizing region in the world. This is not matched by development of transport systems. So what happens is that a fewer number of population is served by a certain mode of transport, and the majority, 65, even 70%, is underserved or served by what we call informal transport. And this informal transport is not safe. Is not safe, in terms of the safety of the vehicle itself. It is also not safe because of the routes that they take. It is a major issue, and they are very bad for the environment. They're very much polluting. Who is served, or who is missing out also on good and decent modes of transport? Mainly women. Women, the majority of our women are in the informal sector and cannot, even when it's available, cannot afford necessarily to move into formal transport or decent forms of transport. And very often they are in markets or vendors here and there. So we need to change that. Those who are differently able, our transport systems are not adapted to those with different abilities. Old people, same thing. Even our streets. Streets, you need resting places. If you have to put chairs every now and then, or place for people to sit if they are old, or women, especially women, because very often they are carrying stuff and carrying children as well, or toddlers. So for all kinds of purposes, transport, not only in Africa, everywhere, have to take into account that women needs when it comes to transport, either the routes they adopt or they take, the modes of transportation they use. their functions within society is different from men, and our transport systems worldwide do not account for that. So we want our transport system also to be safe, to be inclusive, to be useful. We want it to be an enabler, not a constraint for our population. The majority of emissions actually come from transport, especially road transport. Our roads are congested with vehicles that are not necessarily, they are not clean. They are not clean because of several reasons. Because many use Africa as a dumping place where they send used cars or substandard cars, or cars that have been, all kinds of problems of vehicles that are not at all, safe and clean for people, or useful for people to use. But the main problem is that there isn't enough public transportation to cater for our cities and our growing population, which means that people continue to use the roads to move. Goods are mainly depending on roads, again, to move, and it cannot continue like this. It's neither efficient, nor effective, nor sustainable when it comes to sustainability. So we are pushing through our program for infrastructure development for a safe, sustainable urban transport, and to promote that, and also for railways as connections, for movement of goods and people, but also goods, across to alleviate, to decongest the roads and remove one of the major sources of pollution from the roads. But we're not stopping at that. We are also looking into the future, and we want to use the new technologies that are being made available to the world, and especially for us in Africa, things like digitalization and how it helps, more efficiently use your infrastructure, especially transport. And we are also the fastest digitalizing region in the world. We use it in logistics. If you are in a port, to digitalize all procedures. We use things like the single post, at the border, so as to minimize also the waste and to minimize the paper, to minimize this and that. We're moving into green hydrogen. We have six countries, African countries, that are producing green hydrogen, fueling shipping giants like Maersk. We have 4 African countries that are about to produce sustainable aviation fuel, not to mention our immense renewable resources that are now, and critical minerals that put Africa at the heart of sustainability for the whole world, not just for ourselves. It helps a lot when you don't have a legacy, that you use the latest and the best. And that is sometimes used, the term used is fraud leaping, a term that I do not like because we're not frauds. But anyway, making that leap, instead of going through the traditional path, that you can afford to adopt the best and the brightest. But the thing is, a major hurdle, and which I mentioned today actually in the ministerial round, is the major hurdle for us now, especially now, is finance. And finance, because Africa is made to pay exorbitant rates, interest rates, that are definitely a disincentive for investment in the continent, and the stereotype that continues unjustifiably to depict the continent as risky, whereas this is further from the truth, and this has been proven over and over again, last month by a famous report by the UNDP. So we need to do several things. We need to, on the one hand, we continue the improvement of the investment climate in our countries, but also this has to be met by a realistic, real partnership spirit. And willing really to change from everybody else. And as they say, the whole world aspires to change, then we have to change the game. The current game is not serving anybody, is definitely not serving Africa, and if Africa is not at the heart of the game, it's not serving the world, and I mean it. And anyone who can see that whatever the future has to make sure that Africa is very much central to what they do.